That's right, it is I, S.K.A. Obasi, your handsome author and host, back with another episode of Handsome Reads. To the newly arrived, a warm welcome to our growing community. Be sure to check out our previous episodes so that you can follow along as the Army of Sin story progresses. Previously on Army of Sin, we found Liam and Rand back in the land of their birth. A place that, for Rand, holds a particular emotional scar. The previous episode, titled A Prelude to Conversations on the Covers, has paved the way for today's episode, Conversations on the Covers. Okay, enough talk. I hope everyone is comfy as we prepare to dive into the thick of it. Today's episode is set in the beautiful Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. There was a brand of purity in darkness. It was devoid of the judgment that often accompanied the light, exposing all vulnerabilities. Tears were free to flow, hidden within the consoling bosom of obscurity. All the while, an orchestra of night creatures provided the soundtrack to heartache. Thoughts were processed faster, mental images of fantasies, flashbacks, and dreams floating through with clarity. So clear. The hand drifted down the soft fabric, which played home to a slender rib cage before dipping beneath the edges of the top that ended just above a pierced belly button. The flat skin of her stomach flexed, lightly toned abdominals going rigid under the broad expanse of his calloused palm. Such shy tensing of muscles was the only indication that she had never done this before. The polished bronze hue of her skin seared the tips of his fingers as he ran them slowly beneath the dark brown of her top. She clenched her long, toned, jeans clad legs against the thigh wedged between her own. Rand, she sighed. He ignored the pleading tone, the sound lost against that of his own inner voice cheering him on. Nothing could stop him now, hell-bent on his quest to memorize every raised pore that stood out against her skin. Rand. The name reached his ears louder this time, the tone slightly off. Rand? Aya shook him gently, splintering the image in his mind's eye as he opened his eyes to the sound of Aya's sleep-stained voice. ¿Qué pasa, niña? He asked gently, releasing the clenched fist of Aya's hair. No Spanish. That makes my head hurt, she pouted, hair now falling about her eyes. What's up, little girl? Well seasoned and immune to her spoiled tone. Must I remind you that I am taller than you? She teased, gesturing to their difference in length. Also more of a brat, he tacked on, lightly tapping the side of her gently curved nose. Deflecting her half-hearted attempt at retaliation with ease, he resumed the head massage that had previously caused her to re-enter dreamland. Well? Rand asked, breaking the silence. Hmm? You going to ask me something? He prompted, tapping the middle of her head until she opened her eyes, the smoked brown flaring briefly in annoyance. All right, wait, hold up. I drift off for what, 2 minutes and find you. Leave it alone, hon. Fine. Some boundaries were set for a reason. Some things causing more harm than good to talk about. Anyway, I always meant to ask, just how did you survive on the road without any, you know, vitamin S? She asked, adding air quotations for good measure. Rand withdrew the hand from her rebellious curls to hold it in the space between them. Aya stared blankly at him. Rand alternated stares between his hand and her face. As comprehension dawned upon the round curve of her face, Aya's slanted eyes spread in mock horror as she clapped her hand over her mouth, shoulders shaking in mirth. Brat, Rand muttered, the whites of his teeth gleaming in the low candlelight. That is a mad scene, she replied, in between gasps of laughter. Rand absorbed her amusement at his plight wholeheartedly, the joy resonating from her helping to push back the cold and the ache. You should come with us sometime. I can't. Not with Gran on her last. The laughter now subsiding. When do you boys head out again? Not sure. I think he's growing tired of it. Yeah, sure. Liam is tired of all the females, Aya snorted. Can't fight one's nature, Rand cautioned softly. Don't. Don't justify it. Curls bouncing left to right as she shook her head vehemently. I won't. I just need you to know that although your secret is safe, I won't ever stop being genuine. I know, and I appreciate everything you have done thus far. My personal little black book, she beamed. Cool, came the classic Rand response, never having learned to deal with affection and compliments well. We have a summons to answer in the AM, and you know how the women are. His inability to accept love was one thing, but there was no way to hide the pure, naked emotion that thickened his voice each time he spoke of the three elders. True, true, Aya replied. Can't wait to see what new gems of knowledge they have for me. That said, you heading back to your room, or you gonna crash here? Throwing a slender arm across his chest, Aya smacked a wet kiss against his cheek. I'm gonna stay here forever. Gross, he replied, wiping off the slobber from his face. Turning to stare at the ceiling, Rand closed his eyes and focused on slowing his breathing, clearing his mind to allow sleep to invade. End of episode. But you know what? Because you have been the most amazing group of listeners, today is going to be a double feature. So do enjoy an additional episode of Army of Sin titled All Roads Lead to. This episode is also set in the beautiful twin island of Trinidad and Tobago. There were certain moments in life where to take a photograph would mar the actual beauty of the scene. Some things were just not meant to be immortalized in the still frame of a camera. Today was one such day. This high up on the northern range meant thin but breathable air and a perpetual layer of mist that ran along the tree line. Dressed in a long-sleeved cotton t-shirt and customary black jeans, Rand stood shrouded within the mist. The chill of the evening wind was a non-factor, his breathing pattern altering only in response to the figure that stood awaiting him in the clearing, eyes overlooking the city below. Bronze skin glowed beneath the caress of the fading sun, The clearing in which he stood was littered with the natural seating of boulders and misshapen rocks, yet free of tendrils of mist. The light wind tugged playfully at the weight of her jet black dreadlocks. The polished shells attached midway down one lock of hair, lifting gently before her fingers restrained it. Rand stood frozen, joining the trees in their motionless stance, and he hadn't even felt the sucker punch of her stare yet. Better to know than not know, Dudu. Ma's voice reverberated in his ear as his conscience mocked him, taunting him in the face of his cowardice. Wiping the sweat from the inside of his palm against a muscled thigh, he squared his shoulders and stepped from his vantage point. The crunch of loose rock beneath his hiking shoes sounded amplified to his ears. The sound of his blood roared, mouth going dry as his palms were suddenly a sauna of heat and sweat. "Hey, Rand," she greeted softly. Beneath the layer of clothing, no, deeper still, beneath the layer of skin, Rand felt his organs turn to mush. He stood 2 paces to the left of Kaya's supple frame, body humming with the need to crush her to him. It had been ages. 2 years, 4 months, 18 days, and who knew how many hours to be exact. Enough time for her to blossom into skin of a richer golden brown from the sun's kiss, though not enough time for the effect of being near her to wear off. Immediately, the surge came from his core. That same anger, adoration, desire swirled into a most potent cocktail designed to make him throw caution to the wind. "Hello, Kaya," he replied, gaze narrowing as he traced her form from feet to crown. "How are you?" Again, with that voice, so pure, so melodic, a voice born for song. "Better now," Rand responded, cursing inwardly at the gruffness of his tone. The winds caressed the hilltop once more. The 2 figures, standing mere feet apart, drew closer as their clothes whipped about them. Kaya's face flushed as she shifted her weight from one booted foot to the other, drawing her eyes away from Rand's midsection. Rand inhaled deeply as the scent of her blew across his face. The smell of Egyptian musk beckoned him, the lengths of her hair inviting him to bury his face, drawing deep once more to commit their smell to memory. "Your hair has gotten longer," he commented, closing the distance between them. This close, he could smell the vanilla bean extract she religiously applied to her skin, close enough to drag the tip of his nose along her collarbone. Thanks," Kai replied stiffly, sidestepping in an effort to create distance from the man who made her blood hot, but mind seize in panic. "Stay cool, Kay," she reminded herself. But heavens, he had become even more ripped. The image of his t-shirt plastered to his six-pack abs beneath the force of the wind would definitely haunt her for days to come. He was a threat. There was no mistaking him for an ordinary man. He had an aura that signaled the threat of violence, of overwhelming thoughts of only him, of vulnerability, of just too many things that would destroy the life Kaya had toiled so painstakingly to build. Even now, that feral need to drag her nails down the expanse of his back unfurled within her stomach. Insanity had a face, a most handsome one, she thought wryly, taking in the planes of his countenance, rough around the edges, just like his personality. Full lips led to a defiantly proud nose, whose brown skin had begun to peel under the unforgiving Caribbean sun. She knew the texture of his eyebrows, akin to a feather as they hovered above lashes that rivaled her own in length. That, however, was just about where anything soft and gentle about his features came to a screeching halt. His eyes were harsh, capable of stripping even the most stubborn of emotional walls. Brows always furrowed, either in annoyance or deep concentration. He rarely smiled, and even when he did, warmth creeping into his eyes was a rare sight. Kaya hooked her thumbs into the back pockets of her jeans, drawing solace from the wallet-sized snapshot that lay hidden between credit card and driver's permit. He had smiled then, a smile so wide, even his gums had made an appearance, eyes crinkling and slanted at the corners. She couldn't deny the pang of guilt she felt for being an instrument of Rand's current incarnation standing before her. Her gaze swept out to the city below. Its carpet of green flanked concrete buildings divided by lines of asphalt sweeping out to the sea. So many cars were locked in the macabre millipede of late evening traffic, the lower half of the setting sun guiding the wayward home. A whole city below, unaware and uncaring of the silent war of wills that raged atop their sentinel hills. End of episode. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of another 2 episodes of Army of Sin. We are now 10 episodes deep, and I'm going to let you all in on a little secret. Since we're all friends here, there are only 14 episodes remaining in this first season. Yes, I know, while we are all eager to see how both parties eventually collide, I certainly intend to enjoy this journey to the fullest. A philosophy that should be applied to everyday life. Before I go, however, I invite you, if video podcasting is your thing, of course, to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Handsome Reads, all common letters. Subscribe to the YouTube channel linked in the bio or by typing Handsome Reads in the search bar. Be sure to smash that like button if you've enjoyed today's episode, and feel free to leave a comment or word of encouragement. So, family, until next time, and as always, love and light.